Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome, and thank you for joining us for this amazing presentation of Arthur Tress's latest book and a reflection on his newest work, 100 Views of Morro Rock. My name is Thomas Kessler. I'm the Executive Director of the History Center of San Luis Obispo County. We are incredibly proud to be able to host this event and these amazing people, these amazing artists, to be able to share just the incredible work that they've been doing, bringing us a new perspective on Morro Rock. I've lived in Morro Bay for 15 years, and I don't know that I've ever really looked at it. So I'm absolutely thrilled to be welcoming you all. As the History Center, we are thrilled to be able to bring programming like this to the community for free. If you do believe that this is of value, we would be thrilled to receive your support, whether it be a donation, whether it be attending future events. Thank you for being here. And without any further ado, I am proud to introduce Mr. David Weisman.
And thank you, Tom, because here at the History Center, you've been a very great ally working with us and helping us with the archive materials that are used in the book, as we have a Morro Rock then and now. So we appreciate that very much in being here at the History Center. Also coincident with the Then, Now, and Forever Pride exhibit, which is Arthur Tress, our honored photographer and guest tonight, is a participant, and later you can wander back and you'll find a 3-minute video clip where he discusses his photography work, and then one particularly amusing incident, we can call it perhaps, that happened during that time. And so we'll invite you to go back and look at that. That's how I met Arthur. Together with the professors at Cal Poly, we created the San Luis Obispo Queer Archive Project in 2020, and we're looking and have people to be interviewed for the project. And Arthur ended up being the last interview, which was in November of 2021. And we interviewed Arthur at his home in San Francisco. And at the end of the interview, while it was wrapping up the equipment and cleaning up the lights, we just got to chat. And Arthur said, "How long have you lived in Morro Bay?" And I said at the time, "Well, 20 years. And he said, "How is it that I don't know you?" And I said, "Well, Arthur, I know I'm a little bit younger. Maybe we moved in different circles." And Arthur said, "Oh, but I was looking for East Coast New York Jewish intellectual companionship." And then I mentioned that I had been the tourism commissioner when Morro Bay had a tourism committee. And you know something about Morro Bay a little bit? There's this project. I shot 18,000 pictures of Morro Rock, and I haven't done much with it yet. Would you be interested? And here we are 2 years and 2 months after that date, which is March of 2023. So what we'll do is have a little discussion of what were Arthur's inspirations for the work, and some history and some background. And I think Arthur will take us through some slides that he's assembled, and then we'll discuss that. He'll discuss that, and then afterwards we'll open it up for Q&A, and then have the book itself here to sign. It's funny what Tom said about looking at it, because I found as an epigraph for the book. I found as an epigraph for the book, "What good is a rock not looked at?" Ursula Le Guin. And so, yes, that answers the question. And so please let's welcome Arthur Tress.
Oh, okay, it's very nice to come back to the Central Coast. I've been away for about 5 years now, living up in San Francisco. I began the Morro Rock project. It's been photographed by a lot of other people in this area, for sure. And I'm gonna go into the history of that. Okay, on the screen is a picture of me at 7 years old at the I grew up in Brooklyn, and during the 1930s, a government project, they built a wonderful library, the Brooklyn Public Library, and it still exists. And they had a children's reading room, but I was always kind of bored being in there. So I love picture books. And I'm looking at a copy of Audubon's Birds. And so that was a big kind of influence on me, even as a child. Okay, next, I think I push this.
Yes.
Nothing.
Hang on.
Other way.
The arrow key seems to have frozen here.
As usual. While the techies figure it all out.
I think it's because I started in the Zoom, and I just need to click there. Ah,
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Forward. Okay. Let me just go back.
There we go.
Yes. In 1963, 1962, excuse me. In 1962, 1963, they were drafting people, unfortunately, to the Vietnam War. And I had very generous parents, and they supported me in being outside the country for a number of years. So that was a good opportunity to travel. And even in college, I had developed an interest in Buddhism and Zen, and I applied to the Japanese School of Zen Studies in Kyoto, where I stayed for about 6 months. And that's my professor and his wife were in Nara, so they would take me on little tours. But I really wasn't very good at meditation. I'm too fidgety. The person who ran it spoke very good English. And the name of the temple, it still exists today, was Shotokuin-ji. And this is one of their gardens, you see, with the white sand and the beautiful rocks. And in a way, it's like Morro Rock in some way. This represents, the white sand represents the ocean, and the rocks are kind of whatever you can imagine them to be. Okay. And then I was I think I was maybe 23. I was fairly precocious at being a photographer. I had started in high school. And so I did a little project called Japan and the Sea. And so I went, I've always been interested in geometry as part of the graphic design. So this is a beautiful fishing village that still exists on Uejima on the island of Shikoku. And I never spoke Japanese, but you could just travel around to these different islands. They were youth hostels. I had a backpack. And when I was at the Shokokuji temple, it was in an area where they had the university, and there were dozens of little old bookstores. And I began poking around. Even though on a low budget, I was able to buy old Japanese books from the 18th and 19th century. And of course, my favorite artist was Hokusai. We all know Hokusai. And they were like $10, $20 each, because in a way, Japan, when it went through the modernization, rejected its own culture. And so I've been collecting these books now for 50 years. And that book there is some swallows with a reflection in the moon, in the water. That's by Hoke, who is a student of Hokusai. And the one above is a textile design. It's So it's quite an amazing culture of the illustrated book. But okay. I'm sure this is Hokusai. I think we all know his great wave, which was part of 36 Views of Mount Fuji. And but in the last decade of his life, he did a beautiful black and white book called 100 Views of Mount Fuji. And you can get the facsimile on, on eBay or wherever, inexpensively. And so he did, he did 100 views of Mount Fuji. And we'll look at more of those later. But it's always in the background. So that really inspired me in a way that the way I wanted to approach photographing Morro Rock. Okay. Now, in Kyoto, when I was studying flower arrangement, it's based on a kind of spiral composition, and it's sort of heaven, man, and earth. There are three elements. You get three things. And I felt that's what you had here. You had sky, the rock, the earth, and it was these three elements kind of coming in harmony with each other in the environment. At age 60 in Japan, men and women have a birthday party to celebrate their 60th year. And they're dressed up as children. They're given bibs to wear, and everybody celebrates. It's kind of like a renewal. It's like a rite of passage into a new world, the world of childhood. You're kind of reborn and into retirement, I suppose, or doing whatever you want to do. And at age 70, Hokusai changed his name, which Japanese artists did every 10 years or so. He changed it to North Star. North Star is in the Big Dipper, and it's a kind of religious cult also. So I was going to change my name to Alcatraz, Arthur Tress. but my art dealer did not think it was a good idea. Anyway, I could sign the book that way. And so this book is kind of a testament by Hokusai, the way people are in the world. And I sort of was using the pictures of Morro Rock to be my kind of testimony to. I've traveled through China quite a bit and visited Taoist temples, and it's quite an amazing thing. And they're all kind of harmonious with the landscapes. And Frank Lloyd Wright was very much influenced. If you go to his little house by the stream here, it's kind of wonderful, very similar movement of forms and shapes kind of interacting with each other, not just a rigid box. Okay, move on. Okay, why am I in Cambria? How did this New Yorker end up here? Well, I had an older sister, Madeline, who lived in San Francisco. I had an older brother, David, who lived in LA. And so, of course, when you make that drive down the coast, your pit stop is Cambria or Morro Bay. I think probably a lot of people live here kind of made that accidental discovery. And so so maybe I'll get a summer rental. This is a fabulous place, wonderful weather, no bugs, it's amazing and not expensive. I just stumbled maybe it was fate, on this wonderful mid-century modern house, which still exists. It has glass windows all around it, and a huge hot tub and gardens. And so I went from a 450 square foot New York apartment on a noisy street to a 4,500 square foot house for the same rent. And I said, and I have to, a footnote is I was the president, I was the first president of Friends of the Ranchland, which has been forgotten, but we had meetings in my neighbor's house, the first neighbors who were, so we don't want this beautiful ranch developed, with the supermarkets and schools and things. So we were the first ones to begin that movement to save the ranch land. They got, they chose me because I was the only one without assets if they got sued. Anyway, so that was a wonderful place. But also, Cambria at night, it looks like a Japanese village. In the moonlight, you just see the silhouettes of houses. People don't leave their security lighting on. It's beautiful. And I said, you're living in your dream, Arthur. This is a Japanese village in the pines. So, okay. Also, I'm going to digress a little bit because it's the solstice. See, there's a little deck there, right? Well, when you live on the ranch, you can walk it at night by starlight because the stars were so bright and clear. It was just overwhelming. And you could see them moving across the sky. You could see the North Star as part of the Big Dipper. So at a yard sale, I bought a telescope. And it's a kid from New York who hasn't seen the sky very much. And I taught myself a little bit about astrology, astronomy. I found old textbooks from Cal Poly. And so I'm looking at the moon and Jupiter and all that stuff. And it got me interested in something else called astroarchaeology. That you have that here on the coast, certainly. If you go inland to the Carrizo Plains, and I was an early visitor, maybe 1994, when there was no visitor center, and the paintings, the glyphs were still intact. I think a lot of them are. It was just amazing to see this kind of navel of the world just rise out of the hillsides. It was a shamanistic place of pilgrimage. And I'm sure, and you could really just feel that it was oriented to to the world around it, to the sun and the moon. It was a very special place. Okay, so I got interested in that. And this is a curious footnote of history. This is the Palace of Fine Art in San Francisco. And you notice it's like a little round Greek temple reflecting in the water. And it was designed by Maybeck, but another architect who never gets credit for it, William Gladstone Merchant. And okay, this is the water temple in San Mateo. If you're going along 280, it's only about 5 minutes from Highway 92 and 280. And it's a beautiful, it was water from Hetch Hetchy came down, and it's an amazing construction. They're all pond, it's free, you can just park and go in there. So he built that. So he was in love with columns. This is the, naval, what is it?
Oh, yes.
All right, anyway, it's a merchant marine building, naval merchant marine building. And again, you see the columns. It's Art Deco from the 1930s. It's in downtown San Francisco. Okay. Well, who was the architect of the Morro Bay power plant? William Gladstone Merchant. And I was lucky, and when I first moved here, the plant was functioning, and you could take it's considered a masterpiece of mid-century industrial design. It's the only power plant where the smokestacks are separated from the building. I think he intuitively saw their sculptural elements as something of things of beauty. And so I was very interested in the relationship of the smokestacks to the rock, as perhaps unconsciously, and we'll get into that. Okay. Now here, as I say, astroarchaeology has become a kind of very popular science interest, investigation. So you have the, many people are now measuring the different temples, Teotihuacan, the pyramids of Egypt, all these places, and see that there were actually astronomical observatories and lining up the different shadows, and so you could get the summer solstice, etc. And in some cultures, it was so advanced, like Babylonian, etc., or even Mexico, that you could predict eclipses, solar eclipses, even though they were thousands of years away or hundreds of years away. They said they kind of figured it out with mathematics, simple mathematics. And as a photographer, you're very aware of the movement of the sun during the day. In Cambria, I used to, on my windows, I used to mark where the sun would go, and then when it would start going back, you know. So it was a little game that you could play with the shadows. And it was a way, I think, of relating yourself to all these cosmic movements. So this is a round temple in Greece, and 53 Greek temples are aligned to the cardinal directions, solstice and lunar standstills. I don't know what that is. Okay, this is off the internet, but this is a photo of a Greek temple with the sun setting precisely between these two columns. Quite often, on certain days, the sun would shine into the temple, and it would shine on the statue of Apollo or Athena. And that seems to be, okay, that's what we got. Hey.
That's it.
Okay. So I tried to align in this one, I tried to align in this one, the stacks and the sun and Morro Rock. I'm climbing a fence holding onto the barbed wire. So it's not a perfect composition. Anyway, so that was kind of one of the themes of the Morro Rock series.
I would just quickly add, in the 3 years that I've been working with Arthur, one of the tests has been like, David, he's telling me there's this astrological phenomenon that will happen at the sunset if you're there. Problem is, the last 3 years, our solstice has been marred by June gloom. And it would be impossible to test the theory. Now, hopefully tomorrow, longest day of the year, head on down, take a look. It's supposed to be sunny.
Okay, we'll see. We'll see if my theory holds true. We can fake it otherwise. But this is an image of Chaco Canyon, which is, if you just go east, you will come to Chaco Canyon for about 1,000 miles. And it's really worth the visit. It's an enormous archaeological site filled with dozens of giant kivas, and they're round. And you see the little windows? Those were positions for the different solar events that they could figure out. Yeah, and you go up into the hills there are all this rocks carved with spirals that when the shadow hits it a certain way, you know, like a sundial could tell you things. Okay, back. No, where am I going here? I'm jumping ahead. Okay. This is Teotihuacan. It's the temple of the feathered serpent. And again, you have that alignment of the temple. This is my photograph. I was doing round photos. And when I'd visit these places, I had a little toy figure of myself. So I'd photograph, I called him Hobo. And so, oops.
No, go back where you were.
Okay.
And I think we just have to, there we go, slide it back.
All right. So you can see the stairs, but at a certain time of year, the shadow of the stairs makes a giant feathered serpent. And it's kind of interesting. Okay, next. Astronomical orientation of temples, sunrise on the celebration of the god. I used my parents' credit card. I really got around the world quite a bit. So here I am at Abu Simbel in Egypt. I went down the Nile, and this was before they raised, because it got flooded. They flooded it with a dam, and so and you could stay overnight. You could just sleep on the beach. It was a very kind of wild area, and in the morning, these giant figures they're not looking down at you. They couldn't care less. So they're looking out towards the sunrise, and then the sun would illuminate the inside of the temple. So a lot of these things were very kind of planned. And again, the Egyptian pyramids with their square shapes. And throughout my photography, this is 1962. I always tried to find similar geometrical forms. Here's the tent, and then there's the pyramids in the background. It's always just been my thing. Okay, now we'll talk about my Morro Rock series. Someone had built a giant sandcastle in the form of a pyramid. And I think one of the themes of Japanese art is both impermanence. Cherry blossom life, goes by quickly. And so Morro Rock is a kind of reminder of time. It was once a much bigger item 20 million years ago. And now time has reduced it, and it's still being affected by time. And so how do I get these diamond-shaped photos? Well, here's the Hasselblad. Here's the Hasselblad that takes square pictures. Okay. I just turned them 45 degrees. And I said, that's amazing. It was like a whole new compositional world to explore. And the reason I'm still analog, the camera's analog. Anyway, I love that click. And you have to wind it, and you have to futz around, and do this and that, and focus it, So I still use film, and I like the slowness of it, Okay, next. Okay.
Oh, I think you have to open up the next folder. There are 2 folders.
Okay.
You can open up another folder.
All right. This is the kind of book. This is called Sky Watchers of Ancient Mexico, and so there were really people. You see the sky dome and the people, and
No,
yeah,
Make sure. Okay, perfect. So
going back through. Okay, so yeah.
okay.
Over here.
All right, thank you. Okay, so this is the series now. And in one way, I was happy to photograph the seals. Sometimes seals wash up on the beach because they're tired. And so I was able to get a little closer to them, this one, than normal. I'd like to say I'm a seal whisperer, but I think he was just tired. So, but you can see his form is similar to the Morro Rock Triangle. And no, that, you know, that, I don't like that. People can see. Okay. This was at the Harbor Festival one year. And actually, I was going to do a series of the rituals and ceremonies of the Cayugians, because Morro Bay area here has, you know, they have the polar bear dip. I mean, there's a whole series, just as much as any tribal community has, you know, and compile them into a book, you know, July 4th, this and that, and whatever. Anyway, so I'm very persistent. I literally shot 10 rolls of film to get this image because the kids were bouncing in these plastic balls, and so I needed the rock, the kid illuminated, and you know, I don't do any Facebook manipulation. You know, it's wonderful to do this, something like that. And it's just that I have these kind of instincts after so many years of doing it.
Maybe explain to me about how many years and the overall scope of the project, when it started.
Yes. Oh, anyway, I started the project in 2010 and finished it in 2015. So I go out maybe 2 or 3 times a week. It was an excuse, you know, it's taking your dog for a walk. I take my camera for a walk. But obviously, after the first year or so, you kind of run out of the obvious places to photograph Morro Rock. So I began going up these roads, not a through road.
you're fine. I just have to change the share screen for the Zoom, but you can continue.
Okay. And so people would say, you know, go up Black Mountain, go up to this golf course. I mean, I have the skate park in Cayucas with Morro Rock in the background. And I don't use any special cameras, but it was a very funny moment. Oh, well, I'm holding up a crystal ball, and we've all seen that, you know, we've all seen Morro Rock at low tide on the Morro Strand when it makes that wonderful reflection of itself. But when you hold up a crystal ball, it turns it upside down, what it's looking at. So you're looking at a double reflection. So that's cool, right? Again, that theme of twinness, of doubleness. Okay, and then I did photograph a lot of people and animals, and that we may do another book called People of the Rock, because I really wanted to show the community, the surfers, the fishermen, the waitresses, you know, the tourists who thrive around the rock. But anyway, people ask, in other words, this was a fishing boat that just came in, and to get they climbed down a ladder to get to the dock. So the dog couldn't do that. So they had this kind of winch where the dog could be attached and put on the dock. Well, what's amazing about, I used to really do lots of setup and stage pictures. And now I'm an old guy, you know, I just let things be. You know, it's too much trouble, right? And fate and circumstances and karma and all that will bring me what I need, or maybe it's my mind projecting on these things. Anyway, there was a kid playing on the beach making those little sand castles, and I thought that was good. And one of the sand castles broke and made the exact shape of Morro Rock. Not only that, but it was outlined by a little bit of salt left over from the ocean spray. So I thought that's an interesting moment. Yeah. Goodbye. Again, this is Morro Rock and Morro Strand in the wintertime when it's just washed. It's so amazing, very surreal. And these people were just shaking out the sand from their blanket. And then it just made a kind of wonderful shape of Morro Rock again in the blanket. So, but that doesn't happen all the time.
A horse? See that?
Oh, yes. You know, I have a lot of next. And then, okay, so I'm running out of subject matter at a certain point, you know. And I said, well, I've never noticed all the restaurants along the Embarcadero there. And they all have these elaborate windows and shades and multiple reflections. So I began photographing Morro Rock reflected in the windows of the different restaurants and souvenir shops. And so you get multiple complexities. Okay. So it is interesting how a door suddenly opens to a whole new range of experiences. And this is, they're rebuilding the Cayucas Pier, which was, and I said, well, that looks just like something out of Japan, the Torii Gate. And so, anyway, I don't really have a lot of fancy equipment. I just have this camera and one telephoto lens. But in Japanese, if you look at a Japanese painting, like there's an owl in the tree, the owl can be very small, but your eye goes to it because of the composition. So it didn't, you know, I didn't need a big blow up. And so the Morro Rock is very handsomely framed between the two piers of the pier. So, oh, and this, so I was staying at, what's the
Morro Bay.
Inn at Morro Bay. Okay. And I always like that view from the Inn at Morro Bay, you know, that side of it. And there was a little snail climbing along one of these little balconies. And its horns kind of make it the shape of Morro Rock. In a way. And I meant to put this in the, but you can see it. There's a famous Zen poem of a snail. It says, snail climbing Mount Fuji. And I think the poem for it was,
hang on.
he has it in the book. I think it's patience.
That's
Keep.
it's all right. No, I got it here. Here, better be in the book. Oh, here it is. It's in italics. Where am I?
All right.
Oh, anyway,
Well, we'll come back
I'll
to
come
it.
back to that.
But anyway, in a sense, I think it's something like patience, snail.
It's in the interview.
It's in the end.
It's in the interview. That's where it is. So, and that would be, here we go. Oh, snail, climb Mount Fuji, but slowly. Slowly.
I know. What does that mean? Okay. If you're a Confucian and you want to remind, or a Zen master, you want to remind your students that it takes a long time to get where you want to go. But so it did take me 5 years to do my 18,000 photos. I still go back. But it also, to me, when I hear that, go slowly, that it may be saying the snail is very foolish. Why should a snail be able to climb Mount Fuji? You know, and he's going to fail. You know, Japanese love the idea of the heroics of failure. Yeah, and it's interesting. Some of their cultural heroes are failed samurai and all that. And so in some ways, maybe this, I will never really achieve my complete circumambulation and capturing of Morro Rock. But you know, you just go slowly, slowly. Okay, that's not it yet. Yes, some more. Okay, this is, I hope, this is where David when he was putting together the book, he went through the Hokusai book. I have an original copy, and compared my photographs to Hokusai. You see, so you can see that waterfall coming out into the Bay of Tokyo and the dredging machine. When I first came here, it was the year that they did the big dredge every 10 years or something. So there was all this giant machinery on the beach. Below it is a tile in the shape of a kind of dragon monster, fish monster. And I had gone to the fish restaurant on the Embarcadero, where you buy the fish and where you can eat it there. And on the counter, they had this kind of very funny figure of a fish, and in its mouth was a wine bottle. So I said, well, I took the wine bottle out and I bought a fish. And I just took it to the end of the pier. So it's like one fish is eating, it's a famous parable, one fish, the big fish eat the small fish. Again, this is, you probably can't see it, but it's a house in Los Osos. They're building a house up near Montana de Oro. And I was actually able to get a tiny little Morro Rock way in the distance. Also, I have vertigo, so I'm hanging on to this ladder. But again, the Hokusai shows men building a house, a dog at night.
Oh, I think that's the end of that.
Oh, that's the end of that. Is there any more? That might be the end.
Oh, if you go back to the original folder, the Eiffel Tower response should be in that
Oh,
original
all right.
folder. Just let's see if you can see the original folder. And scroll to the, there we go. Let's look at those last three. Yes, there it is.
Okay. I can't really see them.
It's not up there yet. I'm working on it. Oh, my computer is unhappy. Sorry, give me a moment.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, that's good. Well, I lived during this kind of world tour I took. I was living in Paris with very little money in 1962. And I had a maid's room without heat, or you had to walk up. But, you know, Paris was gray and cold, but In around 1890, there's a wonderful French artist named Henri Rivière. And a lot of those French artists, Toulouse-Lautrec, Degas, were very influenced by Japanese prints. It was called Japanism. And even Van Gogh owned a few Japanese prints and made some paintings of them. Well, so Henri Rivière did his own version called 36 Views of the Eiffel Tower. It's quite a beautiful, you can buy it on eBay for a few dollars. It was an exhibit at the De Young Museum. And so it's the catalog for that exhibit. And let's see what else. What's interesting about Rivière is that the Eiffel Tower is way in the background. It's all this industrial scene along the banks of the Seine. They're not the tourist view. And I want, he showed the average workman in those photos. Okay, I think we'll leave it. Well, we can leave it. There's just one more. Almost. Oh, this is a beautiful one. You'll never get to see it. Oh, yes. So, when you're doing a photograph, you never exactly know how it's going to come out. And the ones you think are going to be fabulous, and the little dumb one you just took, without paying is the fabulous one. So again, this was just a grab shot. Again, I had been I became famous for doing my directed and staged photography. But now I'm older and I just wanted to develop other skills to just pull things quickly out of the world that it's passing by. And so this very nice woman was going down the beach. And of course, in the upper one, it's in almost the same position as a woman walking along the Strand. And let's see if the next one comes up. It's promising. Okay, so
There it is.
ah, voila. This obvious is Eiffel Tower with autumn leaves, that theme of transience. And, in Japanese art, the leaves fall. And this was an image down at near the Natural History Museum. And I just, they have all those dead trees where the cormorants and the herons are. So I just thought it was a wonderful pattern of trees and all that. Okay.
Better conclude on a note of why are there no views taken from the water side?
Oh, well, one, I guess that's the north side of Morro Rock. No.
West, I guess.
Yes. Well, one, the west side of Morro Rock is a little less interesting. It's just a big rock. There's nothing in front of it. And one day I said, I really need that for the series. It was a winter day after a big storm. And I've gone kayaking, right? But I'm not really very good about it. So I rented a small kayak around 10 o'clock in the morning, and the tide was going out, and there was a big wind going from south to north. So the tide was pulling, emptying out the bay, and the wind was blowing me. So but I was being swept away in the current. I could have been. So someone noticed, and called the Coast Guard, and they came and rescued me. So I really gave up that project. And I did go out on a whale viewing boat, and as you're leaving the harbor, you do get a nice view of the rock. And I got to kind of, it's in the book. You have to buy the book to buy it.
Well, thank you all. And thank you, Arthur.
Any questions?
Question in the back.
You said you grew up in Brooklyn, yes?
Yes.
So did Manhattan Henge, the phenomenon where the sunlight comes through buildings during a certain time of year?
You know,
did that have
I
influence?
can't hear you too much.
She's asking.
Manhattan Henge. where
The concept of
sunlight-
Manhattan Henge, when you look down at Manhattan
Yeah.
Avenue and
Oh,
the sun
yeah.
sets there.
Did that have an influence over your interest in
Well, it's
astrobiology?
well, that kind of thing where people expect these kind of lineups of things, you know, that became trending. You know, people began finding those kind of things all over the world.
Right.
And I was already into it. You know, I've been studying that for a long time. But that's a good similar example.
Who did the top?
Oh, that's from Henri Riviere's 36 Views of Eiffel Tower.
I found it on Amazon for $14.
Arthur, could you tell people that technically you shoot with a camera, but you don't have a meter in the camera?
Yeah.
It doesn't use a meter or a light meter. It just shoots.
Well, I know after taking, you know, for 60 years, I know the exposure. Also, I just use the same kind of black and white film. So,
Arthur, you said you worked to save a ranch from development. Which ranch was that?
oh, the Fiscalini Ranch.
Oh, right.
See, it was right in front of this house I rented. And then this developer came along and bought the land at an auction, like for $4 million, you know, 1,000 acres. And he was bidding against the Land Conservancy. They really wanted it. And then he came up with these amazing, and so all the people who lived alongside of the ranch, east and west, kind of gathered together and how are we going to stop this? And so they'd have meetings, they got lawyers involved. And eventually the developer gave up because everything he wanted to do, we'd challenge. Because there was no water, you know, to build 1,000 apartments and things. So, and then I think the different towns that donated money. It was now $11 million, but they came up with it. And of course, it's a wonderful preserve. Yes.
Did
think
you
I heard you.
develop your own black and white film?
Oh, for this series, I used Tri-X Kodak film, which they still make and sell. But yeah, so it's a film that's very flexible, you know.
She's
Since
asking if you developed it yourself.
oh, I'm sorry. No, I used to when I lived in New York. I had a little dark room, but now I shoot about 100 rolls a month, 5, you know, maybe 2 or 3 a day. So it's probably healthier that I'm not doing it. Now they have these big machines and also I have joined the digital world. I get scans. The lab makes scans. So that's what you send to people, to publishers. That's how we made this book.
Yes.
It's really amazing that you can go online and make a nice photo book for like $30, you know. And that's a great, I always encourage photographers to make their own books. And it's a nice way of seeing your work and thinking about it in series.
Even though you have scans, did I understand that you don't do any processing after the fact? After the photo is captured?
Well, yeah,
Or,
I make parts lighter and darker.
okay.
Yeah, dodge and burn.
Do you crop?
No. Oh,
I was wondering if you ever wonder later,
yes.
I wished I'd allowed a little bit more room there.
No,
No?
no. But what I do is I do something close up middle distance,
Yeah.
and far distant.
Yeah.
So I have a choice. Very expensive, but that's the way I do it. But I like that black line around the pictures. You're seeing the full frame. It becomes another little mental game to get it just all right within that frame.
Well, thank you all, and Thomas. We have, as you mentioned, we have the books on sale for $30.
You can turn the lights on.
And then there is also food and drink in the backs.
A lot of
Please
food.
don't be shy. We don't want it to go to waste.
We'll happily sign the books for you tomorrow if you want more Arthur still.
It's a wonderful
At
thing.
the Bay Theater in Morro Bay at 1 o'clock. A matinee screening of the 80-minute documentary that was finished last year about Arthur called Arthur Tress at the Water's Edge. And it is a $10 ticket. We'll have the books there too. 1 o'clock at the Bay Theater in Morro Bay and see Arthur in action. Stephen Lewis is the name of Stephen Lewis.
Yes.
Stephen Lewis, the filmmaker from the Bay Area.
Will be available afterwards in some form?
No.
He has not done that yet. It's still on the festival circuit before it gets picked up and released. And there we have it. So anyway, we'll be here. And
Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
And Thomas has graciously agreed if folks want to use a credit card to buy the book, we'll run it through the gift shop at the museum.
Well, that was good. Thank you.
Hello, how you doing?